Good morning, everybody. This is Ed Melendez, and we're going to do a webinar for next year's scheduling for counselors. I'm sure we're going to have some stragglers coming in here and there. I just want to start off by letting you know that you can ask questions, so feel free to do so. There should be a questions tab in your GoToWebinar browser thing on the right. You should just be able to free text it, and I will be stopping periodically here and there to answer those questions as best as possible. So with that said, I'd like to start off the webinar. So at this point in time, this webinar is really based on the screens that are meant for the counselors. So we're assuming that the admin piece of next year's scheduling is finished, or at least hands-off for this user that this webinar is for. I will touch a little bit on a few of the admin screens and other pieces just in case you have to do them in your district, because we understand that there are some smaller districts that the counselor does that as well. And also just it's good to know it for theory as well as just to know what really goes on the back end for your admin to set up next year's scheduling for you. But yeah, I'm going to try to avoid going too much into admin screens because that information will be a little bit useless to you. All right, so to start things off here, I want to show you that first we have a Genesis wiki that's being revamped all the time. All users can access it. In the upper right hand corner of your screen, you can always click on the question mark. Automatically logs you into our wiki. This is the only way for you to get in. Now, in the wiki itself, we have a section that you can search for next year and current year scheduling, in which we have all the different screens and guides that are going to be useful for you in the scheduling part of the system. So some of these FAQ guides could be helpful to you. Another piece of the Genesis wiki that we have that is newer is we have a Genesis video library. So we house all of our webinars replays in here. So it's on-demand webinar replays as well as other useful videos that we do, shorter like 5-minute how-to guides, things like that. There is a next year scheduling guide, and actually this webinar itself will be getting placed there after we are finished recording it and editing it just a little bit, so that way it's easier for you. All the videos run through YouTube, so you can watch them on any device that supports the YouTube app or computer that can watch YouTube videos, which is just about everything today. All right, so with that said, let's get into the actual meat and potatoes here. So in Genesis, we always have 2 years of scheduling data. There's never any reason for you to have to use the school year drop down to do next year scheduling. There's actually a next year scheduling module in the system, and virtually it is the same in just about every way as the current year scheduling module, except for a few extra tabs that are really used for the administrators, but we'll get into that module itself a little bit later. But that has all of the 2015, 16, or if it was next year, whatever data is your next year is all going to be in there. One thing about the 2 years of scheduling data is that you can always edit next year scheduling data without ever affecting your current year schedule. So, have no worry that you're messing up the current year schedule when you're editing this data. So, like the module, in the student data itself, there's also 2 years of scheduling data in there as well for the students. Let me just bring up my student here, and we can actually show you that. So my kid here, and again, just to kind of talk, we were talking about how this is for the counselors. I'm on my system admin account, so don't be overwhelmed by absolutely all the tabs that I have here. You might not have that. You might just have all the scheduling tabs. I have everything unlocked for my demo. So current year schedule is, of course, all the current year data. So we're not doing anything here when it comes to the next year information. You have this current year schedule is always going to be there. That's always dealing with, it's 14, 15, or whatever school year that you're currently in. Next year's schedule is going to be the actual schedule for the following year. So this is the 2015-16 schedule for my student as of now. Now, prior to getting into any of this, I actually would be doing request if my district does operate off a request, and that would be the next year request tab. So there's really three scheduling tabs in the student data for the kid. You have the current year, then you have the two next year tabs dependent on what you're doing. Not all districts use requests, but most of them do. By doing requests, it allows your admin to run the request processor, things like that. So to give you an idea of the steps that happen up to what we're doing, your admin should have copied all of the data over, or at least built your master by now. And at this point in time, you're gathering your requests into the system, so that way they can run in a mass fashion or an individual fashion the next year scheduler. So that way they can process the schedules for you. After you're done processing the request, they would then lock in that schedule, and you would start to work in the actual next year schedule tab for the kid, and that would be a real schedule that you're doing edits to. Now, how do kids get placed into their next year program? This is also something that probably may be done at this point by your administrator, but every student, and I can show you in the demographic screen, has a next school and grade. So whatever is said here is actually going to be where the student is considered in the next year. It has nothing to do with whatever their current program is in. Technically I could set a next year grade of 12 for a ninth grader. It's whatever's down here. So this is useful on an individual basis where you can actually change this if a kid's getting left back, or you could make sure that it's correct if it seems like the student's in the wrong next grade or next school. So you can change this manually on any kid at the bottom of the screen. Now this is more of an admin move, but if it is left to you as the counselor to actually mass assign these or to mass fix these, you may have access to this screen. This is student data, next school and grade, mass assignment. Now, your admin normally runs this at first, and it's based off of a grade progression table that will move everybody up the one grade in a natural progression process. However, this screen is going to be used for mass updating by student list, which is good for when you know that these 25 kids are getting left behind, or these 25 kids are at part of special ed, so they're not going to move up this year, they'll move up another time, things like that. So the way that this screen works is that you have a few options. You have override existing assignments, which you're most likely going to be using because at this point in time, everybody should have a next year assignment that has been mass pushed out. So you're going to say override existing assignments. Ignore the street map unless you actually have that set up, but that's more of the admin process. And the other thing that you want to do is you'd pick your list. So if I had a list of my students that I want to override their next year schedule or their next school and grade because they're going to be left behind, I would do that. I said override, pick my list, and now I can set it to whatever I need to. So if this list of kids was 12th graders that are repeating the 12th grade instead of progressing into the postgraduate school, that's what I would do. And I just select that there, click assign students, and it would override whatever is set for them. And it would pop up message would say, however many kids are on this list have been updated. So this is your list that you have. If you can make student lists right off the student data student list screen. Everybody should really know how to do that at this point. So this is really good. If you don't have access to it, it might be something, but you're in charge of doing all the resetting the next school and grades because of people being left behind. This is something that you may want to get access to just because it makes your job a lot easier than having to go do 100 kids one by one by one. That's a waste of time when you know that those 100 kids are all being left behind. So pretty much at this point you should be dealing with your next year requests. So I'm going to go over all those screens. So in student data, opened up my kid, and I go to the next year request tab. So in next year requests, you start out by going to the current year or the current requests that are on the student, but I'm going to skip that for now. I just want to show you all the tabs in here. We have a summary tab that is going to give me the breakdown of all the students' information. You have current year schedule for the kids. So this is what he's taking in the current school year. You have the requested classes that have been added to them. This might be blank for you at this phase if you don't have any requests in. My student does, of course. You can also see who entered those requests and at what point in time and when it was updated. So there's a little brief audit for you there. We try to give you credit information, the totals, academic history. You can sort and break this down by school year or subject, or by subject and school year, depending on your preference. And then, of course, you have your graduation requirements. These are set by year, by class of for the student, but this is the student's graduation requirements. Those are his credit earns. Those are his the credits needed. In schedule without a final grade, so this is what he's currently taking but hasn't gotten a final grade yet. And then, of course, requested for the next year. So he's a little shy of what he would need. So I know based off this screen that I need to get him at least another 7 credits. This is kind of everything in one shot, so that might be a little bit too much for you. All these tabs are individual breakdowns of the same data, but in another way. So you have current request. This is one of the screens that you can actually add requests to a student if you know the course code. The format would be course/section. If you want to separate it and do multiple in one way, you could just do it in that format, comma. So I could say, like, if I was adding this English course, 1036, 5, and I want to add the algebra at the same time. So it would be like that. And click the add button. If you're doing team scheduling, you could also do teams right from the screen. Scheduling priority 2, we usually suggest not messing with this. However, what this will do is actually add scheduling priority to this individual student, where you could make them be scheduled, or at least that one request gets scheduled before maybe what you have set up in the system itself. So by default, all courses start off with just an even scheduling priority. And the scheduling priority is just one of those few tiebreakers that exist in the system. So that way, when it's trying to figure out whether or not the kid gets this English class or an art class, it'll then look at the scheduling priority and say, well, they're both academic courses, they're both looked at in the same light, and this one has a scheduling priority of a 55, and that one has a 50, so that 55 is going to win. So that's when the scheduling priority comes down, is when everything else that would normally tie break, is this a academic course? Is this an elective? Is this going to be a singleton or a doubleton? That would normally do it, but this is going to be what gets everybody over the edge there. So then you could do that on an individual basis for the student. I usually recommend not doing that and just leaving it alone and let your actual curriculum file scheduling priority do what it should do. By doing this, you could create some conflicts, but it's up to you. Every now and again, you run some really hard kids to schedule because they're all honors, or there are certain other situations that you want to do differently, so you could do that right there. Current schedule, this is just another look at their current year schedule. There's like 3 different screens you can see this information on. There's nothing special there. History, this is the credit history for the kid. We showed you before in the summary. It's just another way to see it. And then you have the grad requirements too. So pretty much, if the summary screen is too much for you to look at, we have them all broken down to individual basis if you want to just kind of focus on that one piece. So the most important pieces here are the make request and the multiple request screen. So make request is going to show you everything that this kid has requested and recommended and requested by the parents module. So at the top here is actual requests. These are what the scheduling processor is going to actually try to schedule them into. This is teacher recommendations. So the scheduler doesn't do anything with this unless it's actually made into a request, which can be done by clicking this button on the right, or if your admin has it set up to automatically make recommendations into requests, you could do that too. That's an admin decision on the back end. If it was set up that way, then you wouldn't even have an option. It would automatically be on this list up here. And then requests from parent modules. So again, these aren't requests yet. This is for the counselor to go in and decide whether or not it's going to be a request. Pretty much, if the teacher recommended the course and the parent requested it at the same time, that's usually how most people will operate. They'll say, all right, well, it should be a request because the parent wants it and the teacher thinks the student should take it as well. Obviously, you run it your own way. I can see that graphics art 3 was already added on here, so he has it for real, and I can see that it's a parent request. If I click this button, you'll see it become an actual request. So it moved from teacher recommendation. It's still there just to let me know, and as well as here, I can see that it was a recommendation. That's what the check mark is. Parent request is obviously a parent request. Now, if I were to decide to delete that, and you could delete any request by just checking them off, I hit this trash can, it's going to knock it out. However, it didn't delete it completely because it's a teacher recommendation. You actually can't delete anything down here. This is always going to stay there, so there's always a record of what was recommended and requested through the parents module. Up here, though, I could delete things that aren't requested by them, and they would be gone because maybe I'm the only person that did a request for it. So to add requests yourselves, you scroll down to the bottom, and you have all the courses listed in this box here. There's a 1 through 8 that you could do in one shot as well if you actually know the codes by heart. But all I need to do is just go into this box. I can do a search by code or number, or I can click this drop down to look at a certain department. So I can click foreign language. It takes me to foreign language department, and all I need to do is just double click, and it adds the code over there to the left. So most likely you don't know all the course codes by heart, so that's definitely the best thing. You can do multiple. All it is just double clicking. If I click the add button, it's going to refresh my screen, and now I have all those requests up there. And if I want to delete in bulk, I can. Just knock them out. And because I'm the only person that requested them, they're not going to have any type of record there. Now, another thing that you could do as a counselor is you can add these requests to a different queue. And this is a queue that's unique to you. So it says Save to Counselor Student Queue. By clicking that, there's now going to be one more section open up here. Now, this is a queue that only you can add to. And these are requests that you can add without actually making the request. So it's kind of just like a holding place. Like maybe you want to, you and a student met and he really wants to take this drawing class, but you're not sure if he meets the prerequisites yet and you need to find out something first. So you just add it there and leave yourself a note that needs further review, and you could just save that right there. So you could click this button and it will create a request. You can delete it out of here if you want. It's just another queue for you. If you want to use it, by all means, do so. In most cases, I see people just make them regular requests. So scheduling priority 2 can also be set on these two. But like I said, I usually leave those things alone. Just let the scheduler process it based on the curriculum. If you run into an issue, then sure, use them. So up here at the top with the requests themselves, there's a few options I want to just go over. One, you can make an alternate request for a specific course. Now this alternate is only for this one request. So if he doesn't get the English 3 and he can get the alternate for that English 3, he'll get that instead of English 3. That alternate doesn't apply to every other course request that he has. It's only for that one thing. With that, you just need to punch in the course code. So in this format, if you know the section, I can say, oh, he wants section 1. It would be written like that, or section 2. So you don't have to do alternates, just an optional thing. For this teacher piece, there's a drop down in which I could request a specific teacher with this course. So the scheduler will try to give him this request with that teacher. If you don't want a teacher, you can say not. It's not really something that's used at the high school level so much as maybe at middle school level. And then you also have a semester drop down for your semester courses where you can force that one to be S1 and this one to be S2. So that way, when the scheduler does it, trigonometry will come first, pre-calculus will come second. This kid really likes math. So any changes that I do here, I just click save and it will save that screen. So that's the make request screen. This is really your biggest foundation for everything when you're doing the request piece. Some people like the multiple request tab as well, like multiple, make request, and then current request. All those screens that you get add requests, it's all adding it to the same place. To me, make request shows you everything. It's a nice overall view. So that's what I like the best, because I can see the teacher recommendations, I can see the parent request, and all that information there. Some people like this screen better because it has a different search where you can go by primary subjects, primary subject 2 as well. You can go by departments if you want. So I can say math, and then primary subject 1, and just do a search. I could break it down like that. So some people do like this one a little bit better. It's literally preference, like whatever way you feel most comfortable with doing this job the fastest, by all means use it. So I mean, this might be a search box that you're a little bit more comfortable with because it's like our other search screens in the system, like our curriculum or section search. So it's up to you. It's whatever you like to use, just use that. But you could check off as many as you want and add the class request. So that's one way that some people might like doing it because it could be faster and easier for them to just kind of break everything down, other than going back using this box, which is, it's a small little box. Maybe you don't like it. Maybe the other information on the other screen is better for you. So that's really everything on the individual kid for the next year requests. So I'm going to jump out of here and show you in next year scheduling module where you can mass update student requests. Now this may not be something that you would do as the counselor, depending on how your admin handles everything. However, if you do this, this is where you can do it. So next year scheduling, student requests. Remember, we're still dealing with requests, so you always need that request word in any of the tabs that you're dealing with at this point. I click on here. I have a few extra tabs that are really useful, but this mass update request tab is where I'm going to be able to give every 9th grader the request for 9th grade gym. Give every 10th grader the second lunch of the day. Things like that. So this is where I can mass add it. I just pick either the grade criteria if I want, or I can pick my own student list. Say I'm the CST scheduler and I have my special ed students on my list. I pick that list there, and I can then add the course request from here, and every course is going to be listed on here. I can pick the request, and I can add a specific section too. If you have like a specific section that is meant for, I don't know, you're running some type of academy program, and for this one course they all need the request for that class because they're the ones that need to be in that section and room. So that would be one way to do it. You can also mass delete requests if you need to. Say you accidentally gave all the 9th graders the wrong lunch request, you could do that. Select 9th grade, you scroll down again, you select it, go through the process. If I click next, it's going to take me to the next screen where I can actually clarify, make sure that these are all the kids that are going to get the request deleted. Mass change is a way where I could set up parameters on what I want to do. So again, you have student list or by grade. All 3 screens share that in common. I could say if a student has a particular course. So this is useful if you're doing phys ed and health. So I could just pick a phys ed. If they have that phys ed, then at the bottom I want to add or delete the health course. So I'll say health science, and it will be added to request. So that's useful if you don't really know every kid off the top of your head, but you just want to set up a specific set of parameters. I could do if they don't have that class, give them this. If they have that class, give them that, or delete. You could set up a few things, so you could set up different parameters. If they have that course and this course, then give them this course request as well. And it's requests. So you're not actually giving them the schedule. It's all requests that you're giving them at this point. And tracking is just a tracking screen to see what mass changes have happened. So hitting these trash cans doesn't actually undo what you did. It just deletes the record. So don't think that that's going to fix what you did. If you mass added this to the student record and you need to undo it, go through a mass delete and just undo it. That's what you would want to do. Don't hit this trash can and think everything is fixed. But this is a nice record of all the mass adds and deletes and changes that have happened, so you kind of know who did what. So whether or not, again, if this is your role or the admin role, that's kind of dependent on the district, so I just want to show you that. Other tabs that are going to be useful to you in the next year scheduling is going to be a mass update in general. It's going to work exactly the same way, but instead of dealing with requests, it's going to actually add the kids to the courses just like you would do in the current year schedule. I'm going to get to that once I finish the individual student part. But let me just see what else could be useful in here. If you are a counselor that has access to this part, request tallies could be useful to you. You open this up, and you can see the overall requests and the sections needed. So it's more of an admin screen, but this could be useful to you just while you're, getting an overall view. Maybe you are in charge a little bit of editing some of the sections in your district as the counselor as well. So this is a good screen where you can get an overall view by department of how many sections you're going to need and what the gender breakdown or special ed breakdown is for all the courses that have been requested. So say we've done the requests at this point. We've run the scheduler, and everything has been locked in. Master's done, the scheduler's done, and now it's up to me at this point as the counselor to do edits. Okay, so now I just need to play with students' actual next year schedules. That's all going to be done on the student itself in the next year schedule tab. So going in there, I have a few tabs, and this looks exactly like current year schedule because it's virtually the same exact thing, except for the data that I'm dealing with is the next year schedule. One thing too, as your little safety net, whenever you see this orange at the top, it means that you're dealing with next year scheduling data. So if the top tab is not orange, that means that you're not dealing with next year scheduling data. So it's just a little like tidbit for you to help you know that we're doing next year scheduling data. So you're going to first come into viewing schedule. So this is what has actually been scheduled onto the kid. We're no longer dealing with requests. Throw the whole request thing out the window. You're done with that. So this is actually giving kids courses. So this is his current request screen. I can add from here if I want. Same thing. You just punch in the course code and section number. So I can say 101/section1, comma, 222. Like you could do that /1. That's how I would add two courses with sections, and you would need sections at this point because you're actually giving them the course. You're not doing a request any longer. So this is what the kid actually has listed for them. You can look at it in the block view if you want at this point, or the bell schedule if you have some type of rotation. Now this is always a fun one. The rotation one's kind of hard to do when it comes to next year's scheduling, and it's not even pulling up because you don't have a calendar built for next year yet, so it has no idea what day to show you, and our bell schedule shows you whatever today's day is for the rotation. So list and block are really the only ones that are going to be useful to you at this point in time. Drop class, you can drop anything. You can drop all the courses if you'd want. You can drop individuals if you want just by clicking in the trash can. This will get rid of any of the courses that the student is scheduled in. You can add classes from this screen as well. This one is a pretty good screen because you can actually do search parameters. You can go by departments. You can say course code, section from here, semester, period, and even days. By clicking this search, it's going to open up all of the courses that match my criteria, and I just click the add button next to the course to actually give it to the student. So let me just add one. There you go. It added it to the course. One thing too, let me see if I could create a conflict for him. So period 2. He already has a period 2 course, so let me search for a period 2 course, and I'll just add him a conflict. So in Genesis, of course I picked the one that he actually has already. I'll give him a different course. So in Genesis, we don't stop you from doing conflicts. We just tell you that you've done a conflict. There may be a reason why you have a conflict that it makes sense to you. So we don't stop you from doing it. But immediately you see you have a pop-up. There's a conflict that you just created here and what courses it is. Also, it's going to be highlighted in red. It's going to show you that the class is in conflict with each other. So this is something that, hey, this might have been a mistake. You may want to undo it. Schedule audit. So this is just like the current year schedule audit. It's going to show you what has been done and by who, show you when it was done by who, what sections, things like that. So ways for you to have a history of what was done. Being that it's next year scheduling, there's no grading data attached to the courses just yet, so accidentally dropping a course isn't as big of a deal as what you've done in current year scheduling when you actually knock out a course by accident. These last two screens, I think, are some of the better ones for next year's scheduling, because you can actually run a scheduler for the kid off of here. So you can add a few courses if you want to. Same way as before, you could do the section numbers separated by periods and commas to add multiple courses. This screen is showing you the request total as well as schedule totals. So this is what I actually have locked in for the kid. And then this is what I have set up on my request total. So pretty much what you're doing here is you have the courses that are actually scheduled. So those are all the ones at the top that are check marked. I can also click this to undo it to make it not scheduled for the student. These courses that I have added on a list, and it saved my history from earlier, are what I would like to schedule for the student. So I can also trash can those too. And don't think of it like too much of, wait, aren't we done with requests? No, at this point, this is the scheduler, and the schedule analyzer I'll show you too is pretty much working the same way. So this is where I can see everything that he has scheduled. So I know he needs a period 1 course, and then maybe like a period 9 course. So I could pick all this. I could pick the section for him, or more importantly, I can just run the scheduler and let it decide where it's going to fit best. So by looking at this, all right, so he had all that scheduled, and he needs trigonometry, he needs English 3, he needs all these different courses. Let me put that in as a request for this one kid, run the scheduler, and let it decide where it fits into his schedule the best. So this is what it decided. You can see the golden check mark. Those are courses that are not technically scheduled yet, but that's what the scheduler did for him. If I save it, it will actually make it into his real schedule. You could have started over too if you were messing with that. So if I undo that, if I undo this, and run it again, I'll show you that. So run scheduler, and then it will come up with the best thing for him. I want to do that. Let's start over again, and I can start from scratch. I can also manually set the section too for him. I could do that for this one course if I wanted, and then run the scheduler for the rest. It's up to you how you really want to process this, but this is useful as kids start to come in. Maybe you already finished the whole mass next year scheduling process, and now you have all these kids that are coming in from transfer schools, and you added all the requests from here, and you want to run the scheduler for them and to see how it best fits instead of making the manual decision on your own, because looking at the master and all that could be a little bit more difficult. So this is, I think, an easier way to get kids into courses where the scheduler is going to use its logic to figure it out as best as possible. It's also useful to just fill in like 1 or 2 courses that the kid didn't get scheduled into. Schedule Analyzer, it does work virtually the same way that the current year schedule one does as well. You can see the slots at the top here, and you can see all the information that he has scheduled currently, same way as the other class, what teacher he's in, credits, things like that. I can undo, if I want to take this trigonometry course off, I can say it's unscheduled on the right. All these A's that are clickable, it's showing available slots for that course. Say if I want to switch this from slot 2 to slot 1, I can click on that and do that if there was an actual opening for it. So this is showing that the course is not set up properly because there's some type of conflict. So maybe I did that on purpose, or maybe I did that by accident. It's just going to point that out to you. Of course, we went over the yellow, how he already took that course. But you also have the same scheduler in here that you did on the other screen, where you can run the scheduler and it'll do its best to build the schedule for this kid based on all the requests that you added. One thing that I like better on this screen is how you add the course request. So you have the department drop down, and by selecting the department in the drop down, I then click the show button, and it opens up all the courses that I could possibly give to the kid. I check it off, I say add request, and it will add that course request to him. And now that that request is in there, I can see all the available slots that exist for this course based on all the sections. Now I can click on that itself and decide manually that I want him to take the period 8, which will then open up this drop down. Whatever has seats available to it, I can click add. I can also click on the PDF to see the roster. so there's 0 students in there, but this is useful maybe if there's kids that this student doesn't get along with, that you can also do. I just click the add button. It'll then add it. Nothing, just like on the scheduler screen, gets saved until I say save schedule. You have the golden check mark to show you that it wasn't completely done yet. So I can click start over if I want to undo and start over from scratch what I already did for the kid. So, and then we have the credit totals here as well. So both the scheduler as well as the schedule analyzer are really useful tools to quickly build a schedule for the kid in that individual basis based on what you've plugged in for them. And the useful thing is too, it lets you kind of play around with the kid's schedule without it actually being locked in just yet. So I can run the scheduler as many times as I want. I can play around if, oh hey, let me move this class and move this class around. Nothing gets saved until you click this save schedule button, and then it will actually affect the real schedule, where when I go to the view schedule, it'll make the changes here. So all the tabs in here, drop, add, schedule, audit, and then you have the 2 schedulers. Really, when it comes to adding courses, same thing as request. No method is wrong. It is up to you how you want to do it. If you like the schedule analyzer better than the scheduler, use that. If you don't like either of those and you just want to add the courses yourselves manually, do that as well. It's up to you how you want to do it. No method is wrong. So this brings me to the mass screens that you could do that. So in the next year scheduling module, again, you may not have access to this, but if you do, this is how you can mass schedule students into a course. So next year schedule, mass updates, we're no longer dealing with requests. So at this phase, we're done with requests. Just want to keep repeating myself so that way you don't make the mistake, because this screen kind of looks like this screen. So when you see request and you're not doing request any longer, you know that you're in the wrong area. If you're adding requests to kids and you've already locked in your scheduler, then you're adding something for no reason. It's not doing anything. So next year scheduling, mass updates. Everything in here will actually give the kid a course, or actually take a course away from a kid, or change something for that kid's real next year schedule. So everything in there this is going to actually do something. Mass add works the same way as all the student request tabs that I showed you. You pick your list, or you pick your grade level if you want to do that, and then you pick whatever section that the courses need to go into. That may be the only difference really, is with the student requests, you're not dealing with sections so much as you are just dealing with overall courses. So this list is going to be a lot longer. If there is a teacher assigned to the section, you will see their name in a parenthesis, so that's always useful. Setting that, clicking next, isn't actually going to add it to the kids yet until the next phase is complete. It's just showing me an error because there's not enough seats in the section that I picked for the giant list of kids that I want to add to it. So it's just saying I have 124 kids on my list, and there's only 25 seats available for this section. Not all of them are going to get it. So on this screen, I can actually quickly exclude kids by checking them off. And then when I do want to lock in, I scroll down to the bottom, click add, and it will attempt to add all the students that are on the list and aren't excluded into there. Same thing for delete. Mass delete works the same way. You pick the kids, you pick the grade, whichever thing you want to do, and then you click course section to delete. So by doing this, with the delete though, is they actually have to be in the course to be able to be on the next step. So if I say any kid that's actually scheduled into this one course, I'm not actually sure if there's kids in this course, but I click next, and then same thing, I could delete this course off of all these students that are in there, and I could say exclude if I don't want the action to occur with those 4 students. Mass change is, again, the multiple action tool. If I want to say if a student has this course, but we're dealing with section at this point, so if they're in, so this is one useful way to do some type of links though. If you couldn't achieve it with the scheduler and the request, let me just scroll down into my phys ed. So if phys ed period 2 needs to be with the health that goes with it, and you couldn't figure out how to do it with the course request or by setting up the master scheduler, you can do it this way as well. And this is one of the easier kind of tricks, I guess, to doing it. So I could say, well, this phys ed and this health have to go together. So that's one of the ways that you could manually do it. So if a student has that one course, they're going to get that one course. If they don't have it, or if you want to drop, you have those options there too. So that's the usefulness of mass change. Totally up to you if you do mass change or if you do two actions, mass add, mass delete. By doing mass change, though, you could do the multiple actions at once, or you have the whole parameter set up for you. So I find it useful so you don't accidentally add kids to the wrong section because you're making all these crazy student lists and such. To me, this is much easier to go in and be like, hey, look, if any kid got phys ed, phys ed 1, period 2, they have to have the health. It has to go together. Tracking, just the same as the student request tracking. This is going to show you what you have mass updated, mass deleted, and the record is not, it's just showing you the record. Deleting the record doesn't undo what you did. If you mass added kids to that phys ed course erroneously, you need to then mass delete them out of there. By just deleting the tracking record, all you did was delete the tracking record. So just keep that in mind. That is all the main screens that you as a counselor in this next year scheduling process need to know. You have the mass update tools, which you may or may not have access to, student data, next school and grade, mass assignments. That's ways that you can mass leave kids back if you want. But primarily for you, you're most likely just dealing on a one-to-one basis with the student. So, and in there, useful places are you have the next year, next school and grade. That's where the kid is actually going to go next year. That's where all of his data is based on. In the beginning of the request phase, you're all dealing with the next year request screen. And then after the request phase, it's all next year schedule. So, there's not that many places for you to go. It's really kind of cut and dry, plain and simple on there. And again, no methodology that you want to use is wrong. There's multiple ways to do some of the things because some people like it this way, some people like it a different way. It's completely up to you how you do it. Now, I kind of promised I wouldn't do too much admin things, but seeing how we have a little bit of time, I want to go over just a few admin screens that could be useful to you just in case you are the counselor that has to do curriculum or has to do sections. So next year scheduling, curriculum and sections is where you can edit any of that. If you actually are doing the curriculum or section editing, it's really more of an admin tool. But if you need to make edits, this is where it would be done. It's exactly the same as the current year scheduling module. The data that you're dealing with is just next year. And again, there's that orange color to show you that I'm in the next year. But this works exactly the same. On the curriculum screen, I just do a search for courses. I can go by department, primary subject, any of those things that I want. Click search and the courses would come up. But if I need to edit this course in the next year, this is where I would do it. You're not affecting the current year curriculum at all by doing these edits. So if you are happen to be the person that needs to edit this data, this is where you would do it. I'm not going to go into all these fields, but you have all the different fields that are in here. It's exactly the same as the current year scheduling screens. You're just dealing with next year's data. Same thing for sections. If I go into sections, I can do a search here by department, and this is where you would edit the actual sections. You can set the teachers, you can set when courses meet, you can look at the roster if there is kids actually scheduled into the courses. You can say what day the course meets. You can add multiple teachers to there. Now, again, more of an admin process. You may not be doing this, but just in case you need to see and you have access to this next year scheduling sections to see why a course is set up the way it is, this is where all that data is. This is where all that data gets edited. And another useful screen is next year scheduling curriculum subject/grad requirements. Again, generally set up by the admins, but this is where it would be edited. So those are really your useful locations that are more admin related for job duties, but curriculum section, subject, grad requirements, they're all there. this is where that data is. So if you find something that's wrong, you know where you can actually fix it. And by making these changes in the next year data, you're not messing with this year's data. So don't feel like you're, oh, if I have a grading or credit change for next year in this one course, it's not going to mess up this year's. Every single school year in Genesis has its own unique set of curriculum and sections that are unique from each other. So whatever changes you make in one year does not affect a different one. Thank you for attending the webinar. We'll see you next time.